Before we get started with this video, I wanted to send out our good wishes to John Barrowman, who was put in the hospital with a severe neck injury. He was receiving treatment last we heard, and we wish him well for a speedy recovery. Another thing that was going on while I was away for the weekend, I came across, we went antiquing, and I came across, besides a interesting couple of pieces that we picked up, I found a owner's manual for something out of my collection. This is a Atwater Kent manual from 1930. I have a console radio that I have in my living room, which looks just like this. And so this is kind of a find, having an owner's manual for an antique that I own. So that's just kind of a nice thing there. It has nothing to do with anything, so we'll get on to something that does with something after this. Hello out there, I'm the Oldest Nerd, and we're talking today about episode 4 of The Mandalorian. And on this particular episode, they find a planet that is not very industrialized in order to kind of hide out for a few months. That was at least the intention between the Mandalorian and the child. What he finds is something completely different. The show opens with a village. They're fishing, and interestingly, on this planet, fish and frogs are pretty much the same as they are here, only a different color, mostly kind of in the blues. At any rate, Klatooinian raiders come and sack this village of all of their fish and everything else they can get their hands on, and cause a lot of damage and go back out into the woods where they're hiding. So as the Mandalorian arrives, he meets another warrior by the name of Cara Dune, and she is possibly, we're not certain if she was with the Rebel Alliance or was once with the Empire, but made some mention that after the fall of Endor from the Empire to the Rebellion, that she did some cleanup work there and some things that she wasn't too happy about, and found herself on this planet and kind of one of these, this town ain't big enough for both of us. And that was good enough for Mando to say, well, we'll find someplace else to go. And at that time, as he's going back to his ship, preparing to leave, he is approached by a group of the villagers who say they know about Mandalorians and they need his help. With all of the weaponry that he can bring along with him and the help of Cara, they go to the village to try to defend them against whatever's attacking them, until they find out very soon there that there is an Imperial ATSD in the vicinity. Now, these are the Imperial walkers that they used in Return of the Jedi, and while the Rebel force was able to disable them pretty easily, they are shown to be very deadly, and certainly not something that only a couple of people could battle. And so the villagers, rather than leave their village, said that they would be willing to learn how to fight back. And so Mando and Cara teach them various things on hand-to-hand combat, on shooting straight, and things such as this, and prepare a trap for the Imperial Walker. So there's good fight scenes in this. We have some interesting interaction between the village children and the child, and we have the Mandalorian almost thinking that he might just take off his helmet and stay with these people. He's grown rather fond of them. He shows us removing his helmet on one occasion, and that's to eat. So presumably he can't eat with his helmet on, but waits until everybody's out of sight before he does so, and claims when he's talking to but the little girl that was her daughter was named Winta. Anyway, the mother was told by Mando that he has not taken his helmet off in front of anybody since he was a child. And we hear "This is the way" once again. So what we see in this, once again, is a minimum of dialogue, generally speaking, and a good deal of action. And the action is not high-tech action, but just good old shoot-'em-ups like you used to have in Westerns. Except now we have moved from the idea of the man with no name to Have Gun Will Travel, in which Paladin went from town to town and was kind of a soldier of fortune rather than a bounty hunter. And that's kind of how we see Mando now. He's not looking for a fortune. He doesn't really care about the money so much. In fact, he divides it with Cara in order to come with him into this town. And they go their separate ways by the time that they have to leave. But this is what we're seeing right now, perhaps through the rest of the series, as he goes from town to town helping people. And this is a staple of television. That's why there were so many Western shows that had the single person that went from town to town, the private investigator shows to where there's always somebody that comes to him, or the doctor that has the new disease of the week. It's always a matter of the main character being put in a position to help someone. And so that is what we are in this episode, and possibly in the future ones, now that we have the main characters pretty much set as to what their motivations are and why they do what they do. Bryce Dallas Howard, the daughter of Ron Howard, the director, was directed this and did a very good job putting in just a little hint of romance without getting too deep into it, a good use of children without them dominating, and a good use of a believable fighting force. Once again, I think a very well done episode, once again exceeding my expectations for where they're going with this. The only thing that bothers me is that I had to turn on the subtitles in order to understand anything that was said. And this is a criticism that I've had with many of the Star Wars films. They have a tendency to say the most important things muttered. Now, the unimportant things they say out loud, but if you want to find out a character's name or what the really driving force behind all this is, they come in and kind of throw it out there. And when they do that, I miss it. And I'm certain it's designed for people who want to see it 60 times. And I would think that if you want to tell a story, tell the story. Just get it out there and tell us. Don't mutter it. And I don't think it's bad acting. I think it's just a stylistic thing that they have that just irritates me a little bit. We see some technology that the Mando has in his helmet, kind of a Space Ghost thing on his gloves with the buttons that can make the helmet do different things. We'll probably see more of that as time goes on. This one apparently was a UV filter where he could see footprints and things like that. That's what I see as far as the technology. They're letting it in a little bit at a time. They're not putting his ship in danger every week. He's, puts it down somewhere and then locks it up, and there doesn't seem to be any danger there. We learn a little bit, just enough to keep it interesting with Mando. We still have the child with him, despite efforts he has to put him in someplace safe. It seems that there's always going to be someone after them. So the question that comes to us as we go through this particular season is what is going to be the solution to this? What's going to keep them from being followed? So that's what we're thinking about right now. I'd like to know what you're thinking about this. I've already heard from some people saying that they enjoyed this and wanted to know what we had to say, and so thank you for that. And also would thank you if you would subscribe to this channel and let us know what you think about the show and anything else that comes to mind. Next time I'll show you also the radio that I bought in the antique store. And until next time, don't go far.